Hi, it's me, Vicky Marie, with a cup of coffee this morning. So I'm ploughing my way through this College of Policing review report on the Nicola Bulley case. We've seen so far, but you can hear my voice is going. I've done that many videos, most of them this. Sorry. So I'm going to continue to go through it. We're going to start with the spotlighting the social media. That's as far as we'd got with the last video. So as you know, I'm going to be releasing like it a bit at a time, trying to make sense of it. Trying to, I'll talk about sort of what I think of it, etc. Now, the whole report, I'm just going to be reading out the things that I think are important. But as I've said before, I'm not trying to censor you. If you want to go onto the internet, you can find this report in its full entirety. And it's a very long report. It's 143 pages. I am up to page 79. I'm just over halfway through. But just for the sake of brevity, I read out the things that I think are important. And I think also I just want to stress that what's in this report is not my opinion. This is what the report says. I'm just reading it out to you and trying to maybe sort of make sense of some of the more confusing bits, because some of it, of course, is just like, it's police procedures and etc. Police procedures, etc. And I don't think we need to look into all that. But what we need to look at is how these were implemented, what they found the mistakes were, or the good things, and then their conclusions. These are the important things. And it's good to look at it bit by bit, because you can't take it in all at once. I've already read it several times, and every time I read it again, I find something else that I didn't notice the first time, because it's just so vast. And it is detailed. I give them that. It's vast and detailed. The other thing I wanted to say, thank you so much. Hope my voice gets through this. Thank you so much. So I've had such lovely messages and emails of support. Thank you so much. You're all such beautiful people. Honest to God, some really lovely people out there. There's some horrible people as well, but you know what? We just have to ignore them. For some reason, this case just attracts so much spite and hatred. It always has right from the beginning. Even from people who supposedly are working towards the same goal, of finding out what happened to Nikki. So I just don't understand that. But anyway, there you go. Everybody's different. So thank you so much to those of you that have been so nice, so kind. Okay, so we're going to look at social media. We're going to look at the social media aspect according to the College of Policing review. So the former lead for the National Policing Social Media Project suggested to the review that recognition of the impact and the position that social media plays in terms of community engagement and confidence is not universally recognised or understood within policing. And I think this is true because social media has exploded so much over the last couple of years. I mean, social media has been around for a while now, but I do think over the last couple of years, I'm not sure why. I think it's this lack of faith in the mainstream media. So people are turning more and more to social media. And now it's not just young people, it's older people. Everybody is turning more to social media, information on demand. They don't want to wait for the 9 o'clock news or the 10 o'clock news and just be told, just sort of told one thing by a certain a certain corporation or whatever. They want to find their own news. And then I think what a lot of people do, and I hope that they do, because this is what I'd always encourage people to do, is they look at all different news or all different slants on things, and then they make their own mind up. So, you know, they don't have to agree with me. They don't have to agree with someone else. Don't have to agree with another person. You know, they go around, they see all the information that's out there, and it's almost an overdose of information, isn't it? But ultimately, everybody, we all have to make our own decision as to what we believe, what we think is right. And even when it's against popular opinion, you know, you have to stick by your principles and what you think is right or not right. And that's what people are doing. So, yeah, and I think I expect the policing has found that difficult to keep up with, and that was illustrated, wasn't it, in this case? This case has brought it to a head. It's probably been wrong for a long time, but because there's not been a case that was so high, you know, high visibility, it's not come up before. So apparently the social media project target operating model, which was published in 2019, which I know is only 4 years ago, but I think in this day and age when things move so quickly, they could probably do with reviewing it every year, couldn't they? Anyway, it's only been adopted by just under half of all forces. So this is not only criticising LP, but, you know, only just under half of all forces have adopted this target operating model, and it's 4 years old, so every year that should be reviewed in my eyes. The ability of forces to use social media both as a reporting tool for the public that supports investigations and as a channel for public engagement is not consistent. Now, that's what I found that annoyed me about Snowden. Because I know he's entitled to have his private social media account, but I think that's, at the end of the day, if you're the police commissioner, should you be posting all those things that he was posting when you're in the middle of a serious sort of incident thing that's going on? I would just question that. I mean, I've got friends who are not allowed to have social media accounts because they work in finance or in banks, or they're not allowed to have social media accounts because you know, social media accounts can be problematic. So yeah, maybe he should think a bit about that and who he is. You know, he's a public figure doing a certain job, and maybe it doesn't fit well with his private social media account, which is, I call it private, but it's open for everybody to see. Maybe you can set it to only certain people can see it. So maybe you should do that just for his family, just for his friends. Anyway, Elsie has a well-developed policy and process for triaging social media messages through their digital communications team, which works collaboratively with the press team and through their fully staffed 24/7 digital desk. In this regard, the Constabulary are ahead of many other UK police forces. Well, that's interesting. Now, you know, if you follow the Lancashire Police, like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you know, they give they are more serious and more, you know, gosh, what's the word? You know, they're useful, I would imagine, to the public when they publish something to say someone's missing or there's been an incident. So they're praising this a little bit, but then it makes you think, if they're ahead of many other police forces, what are the other police forces like? Anyway, under normal circumstances, the press team works in collaboration with the digital communications team to issue proactive social media content linked to ongoing incidents, investigations, and appeals. Messages from the public are triaged in office hours by the digital communications team and are actioned as appropriate. Outside normal hours, this role is picked up by the digital desk in the force control room. However, even with this function, it is clear that the volume of social media activity threatened to, and soon did, overwhelm the investigation and Lancashire Constabulary's ability to manage community tensions. LC has corporate external social media accounts across 6 platforms: Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and TikTok. According to an analysis conducted by LC, engagement with its own corporate social media channels, excluding TikTok, increased from an average 10,000 inbound messages per month to 76,400 in a month. Goodness me. I mean, that's a lot to cope with. I mean, you've got to be fair, that's a lot of messages to cope with. Over 30,000 of these messages were within the first 10 days of the original MFH appeal. This increased traffic put a strain on the press office, who were required to monitor social media activity relating to the story. This is a point observed by a national media representative who suggested that the police could not keep up with it, the volume of social media activity. You know that they probably didn't have the resource to keep up with that level. Well, obviously, I would say. At the beginning of the case, the majority of social media traffic relating to the investigation was positive, with users primarily sharing and raising awareness of Lancashire Constabulary's attempts to locate Nicola. However, as the story progressed, the sentiment of inbound social media traffic became overwhelmingly negative towards LC. This included considerable criticism of its investigation, as well as speculative theories that were contrary to the constabulary's working hypothesis. Analysis conducted by the M&E team notes that compared to the period before the investigation into Nicola's disappearance, negative and semi-negative sentiment on Facebook, etc., increased 459% by over 21,000 messages, and the overall sentiment of content showed a downward trajectory. Yeah. Gosh. Oh God, I bet they didn't know what had hit them. Media speculation around the investigation was fueled by individuals on social media who offered commentary on the developing story in the investigation. This is an issue that all high-profile police investigations have to address, and social media platforms have greatly increased the reach of such commentators. A recent BBC investigation inside TikTok's real-life frenzies, from riots to false murder accusations, suggested that some social media platforms may lead users to post speculative content which may be inaccurate in the hope of gaining a wider audience. I do think that happened. I mean, it did, I mean, we had to speculate up to a point because we didn't know what had happened. But I think some things were just totally wild in my eyes. Anyway. A spokesperson for TikTok, a social media platform on which videos using the hashtag of Nicola Bulley's name had 270 million views. Jesus. Taking the Lord's name in vain, told the BBC that users took more of an interest in stories at moments of national conversation, which are intensified by 24 hours news reporting. And of course, when you think, because the thing now is TikTok, YouTube, anything like that. You mention TikTok so much, they don't mention YouTube that much. It's international, isn't it? So it's not only TikTok, British TikTok. This story went viral all over the world. So thinking of it like that, you think, God, maybe that's not as much as you might have thought. But anyway. Local media representatives who provided information as part of this review suggested that the negative sentiment of social media traffic on Facebook, TikTok, etc., had a significant impact on levels of confidence in Lancashire Constabulary among the community, as did on the ground presence of social media influencers promoting conspiracy theories about the investigation in St Michael's on Wyre. Again, this comes down to it not being controlled properly, doesn't it? The volume and sentiment of social media traffic also had an impact on the morale of the staff in LC, both in the investigation and the M&E teams. Frustrated officers and staff who were spoken to during the course of this review asked if there was anything that could be done to control social media, even in terms of possible legislation. The media told the review that they felt social media users were treated by Lancashire Constabulary on the same basis as professional journalists from local and national media outlets. This extended to social media influencers being admitted to the first and second press conferences without accreditation or press passes being checked. I mean, I was sort of gobsmacked when I read that. I mean, how can you let someone in without the press? I mean, that without the press pass being checked. Apart from anything, that's just dangerous. You know, what if somebody's trying to get in there and they've got a bomb or a knife or you know, they could be anyone and they didn't even check their ID. That's awful. I mean, that really is awful. And I'm surprised at that because, you know, Lancashire Constabulary, Lancashire Police cover a wide area. You know, they're not like some little village police force. So, anyway. Okay, so this review considers that to be a significant mistake. LC also issued press statements on social media at the time as issuing them to accredited media. While standard practice, this drew criticism from a number of journalists who were spoken to as part of the review. While the growth of social media has meant that news organisations and public bodies can now reach audiences like never before. That's it, and you can use that to your advantage. You know, of course, it can be a negative thing because misinformation spreads so quickly. But you know what? If you use it properly, if you control it properly, it should be a massive department that really within the police, because if you use it properly, it can really help. So the danger and speed at which misinformation and conspiracy theories can spread on social platforms was clearly evident during the investigation into Miss Bulley's disappearance. Whereas journalists working for mainstream and reputable news organisations are bound by regulatory codes which set the framework for the highest professional standards of editorial accuracy, content published on social media by those who consider themselves citizen journalists is not regulated in the same way. Now, just something that made me think of there. Yeah, I was thinking about how they do it in Spain because I follow some of the, you know, the police sort of Twitter accounts, etc. here, and they quite often put out tweets or Facebook messages of what they call bullas, like fake news. And they say, be aware of this because this, you know, this is circulating. And, you know, just be aware that this is fake news or whatever. So they're quite on top of it in a way, but I don't know if it would have been the same in a case like this. Maybe not. Maybe it would have, they would have lost control the same, but they do talk about it quite a lot. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I need to take a bit more notice of it. Police forces have been working to engage directly with the public through social media, whether that's putting things out on Twitter, Facebook, etc. There are existing lines of communication with mainstream media, and the fact is that these weren't utilised. So that was a local media journalist saying that. Now that's it. The thing is, when we do criticise mainstream media, obviously, because we only get one point of view, but everything they put out there, they do have to verify. They are accountable for things in a way that social media is not accountable. I mean, literally, I could go on Facebook. It's not blue, it's pink. And what's going to happen? Or even, or something more serious than that, say that, I don't know, somebody killed somebody or something happened. You can't do that on mainstream media. We've seen that in the war. You get the horrible war that's going on at the moment. Well, there's a few, isn't there? But the war in Ukraine or the war in Palestine, it's like, I've noticed when I've been watching Sky News, because that's what I tend to watch if I watch any news. They're very careful about what they say until they'll say this hasn't been verified or blah. They at least say that. And I did see during the Nicola Bulley case, people were putting things on and just like, they see a post on Facebook and just think it was true, or present it as if it was true. But anyway, I mean, I'm sure from the same idea that they would be looking for some sort of justice for Nicola, but problem is when too much of that sort of thing goes out, it all just gets lost, doesn't it? It gets lost in the ether, like it did with the McCann case and that, till in the end people don't know what's true and what's not. So, it just all gets ridiculous. Okay, so media representatives told the review that the blurring of the lines between social media and mainstream media and the former's negative influence was evidenced by the family statement read out at the press conference on the 20th of February. This statement criticised the role played by mainstream media in encouraging the spread of conspiracy theories and mistruths, while it was social media that was primarily responsible for this. Don't know about that. I've looked back over some headlines from the time, and I think the mainstream media were just as guilty of sort of, like, they would put things out there and then, social media would take it up. Elsie highlighted to the review the actions they took to support the local community, including putting in dedicated neighbourhood policing resources, ensuring that key stakeholders were informed, using dispersal orders and making arrests. These actions helped to provide assurance to the local community at a time of great upheaval. The need to undertake these measures was unprecedented, and this further underlines the real-life impact of social media on policing. So their conclusions were that Elsie acted robustly to support the local community in relation to the physical presence of social media influencers in St. Michael's, including the arrest and eventual conviction of one individual. This is commendable. The impact of social media on policing, especially on live investigations, is a significant and growing issue, and the part that social media played in this case is far from unique. It is well beyond the scope of this review to express a view or make recommendations relating to the role of social media, its management or regulation. However, the evidence gathered as part of this review suggests that the impact of social media on police investigations is a serious and growing problem, which must be addressed by forces across the UK and policing centrally. Times have changed, life has changed. It's very important that they get a grip on that and decide what they're going to do about it, and it needs to be reviewed constantly, because even what people are doing today on social media, next year it'll all be different because it's changing so quickly. LC should be commended for their use of the digital desk, which allowed them to capture, triage and action a wide number of reports from social media as part of the investigation. LC should have been quicker to recognise the impact of social media interest and negative sentiment on the wider narrative around the case and public confidence in the police. Which is exactly right. They should have been quicker. They just tried to pretend it wasn't happening, I think. They were so busy all arguing amongst themselves. They were all arguing amongst themselves. Then when Peter came along, they were arguing with Peter. Then they were arguing with the media, the mainstream media, that's been made evident earlier. There was too much were they actually doing any policing amongst all this conflict? Anyway, recommendations. The College of Police, in working with the MPCC, should amend its engagement and communication APP to acknowledge clearly the differences between mainstream regulated professional media and social media, including the individual requirements around their treatment by police communicators. And the MPCC lead for communications should consider how lessons from the case can be learned. We always come down to that, don't we? Lessons to be learned. Anyway, resilience. As detailed in the media narrative and social media sections of this chapter, there was unprecedented demand on LC's press office during and following the NB investigation. Gosh, you just think, did they just let this all happen and not ask for help, not say, look, we're drowning in all this. So sorry, Nicola. We're drowning in all this social media attention. We can't cope with it. Didn't they just hold their hands up? Why didn't they just hold their hands up and say that? So to deal with demand, members of the Lancashire M&E team with responsibility for channels other than the press were seconded to the press office to provide additional resource during this time. Oh, well, that's something. However, here we go. They didn't have enough training, they're going to say, aren't they? This is what they've said all the way along. However, the members of staff seconded to the press office were not trained in media engagement and could not access the press office phones or media contact log platform. This meant that they were unable to answer the press phone line. So what was the point then? At times, because of pre-planned annual leave amongst the press office, there were only 2 trained press officers available to answer media. Now, this is something that came up before, and I'm sorry, but you don't. So was this one person that was on annual leave? Was it 2 people on annual leave? Was it 10 people on annual leave? Just seems strange to me that, if you've got anywhere I've ever worked, from when I've worked in, I don't know, when I worked at the Department of Health and Social Security, or when I've worked in department stores, or I've worked in the betting shops, or you couldn't all have your holidays off at the same time. You had to apply for your holiday thing, and then important holidays like Christmas, etc., would be taken in turns by people who wanted them, because obviously anyone with a family would want Christmas off. And at the time, I didn't have children, so I was quite happy to work at Christmas because you got paid more and have time off at another, I don't mean on Christmas Day. We wouldn't never work on Christmas Day, but, to work on Boxing Day at the racecourse, or in the department store, because to me, I didn't have to be at home with children and stuff like that. So there'll always be, but it used to be planned like that. So you couldn't all be off at the same time. So you couldn't say to all your staff, oh yeah, you can all have Christmas off. You do rotas, don't you? And for those who did want that time off, they would, one would get it 1 year, or a group of them would get it 1 year, another group the next year, which was done like on a rota basis. But so this just makes me feel that maybe, because of this pre-planned annual leave amongst the press office, so it says there were only 2 trained press officers. So were there only 3 in total then? And they're saying that one was already on holiday, or they're saying that quite a few of them were on holiday. They don't actually talk numbers, do they? So this limited the press office's ability to manage the large volume of incoming requests for information from journalists. So this is just journalists. 500 calls were logged by the press office over the course of the investigation. 500 calls doesn't seem that much over 3 weeks, does it? So I think there was probably only 2 people, and the third one was on holiday. For some national media representatives who were spoken to as part of this review, the limited direct contact by telephone with LC was symptomatic of a broader issue with communications between the police and the media following the COVID-19 pandemic, where there was a reluctance to answer enquiries by phone. So this limitation also meant that opportunities were not taken to proactively influence the narrative around the investigation, including through background briefings. And this is elaborate. We've already gone through that, the relationship with the media, which was very fractious according to that. Okay. I'm just going to go down a little bit, because it says 2 of the senior police communicators that were spoken to during the course of this review stated that it would have been advisable for Lancashire Constabulary to make use of communications professionals from other police forces, a buddy force system. But Lancashire Constabulary M&E team had no such plan. They did benefit from critical friend advice from the head of corporate communications at South Yorkshire Police, who carried out an informal peer review of the communications strategy for the investigation. This was valuable and to be commended, but it was not the same as having a senior media handling expert embedded with them for the duration of the incident. So they didn't have a good plan for that either. So conclusions, the greatest challenges that LC faced during this investigation were those presented by the media and social media. The input from operational experts in the peer review did not include any meaningful support on these aspects. While the constabulary has an experienced press office, the provision and availability of media experts through the NCA or other partner may have added value to their strategy and support. And the decision by LC not to accept help from other police communicators, why were they so reluctant to ask for help or accept? It sounds like the help was offered and they just didn't accept it. What was that about? Was it just like stubbornness, pride? What was it? Meant that it was unable to respond effectively to media needs and contributed towards the information vacuum that subsequently developed. This decision was influenced by the inaccessibility of the press office's telephony and call logging systems. The lack of interoperability should be addressed by Lancashire Constabulary and any other forces in a similar situation. Recommendations. The NPCC should consider how force communications resilience can best be supported nationally, including exploring how informal and formal measures such as resilience protocols, supply expert communication staff from other forces, and buddy systems between forces could enable forces under pressure to bring in additional support quickly. And the College of Police in NPCC and NCA should all work together to address any gaps. But these recommendations really, they're just like, they're not rocket science, are they? They should have already been happening. But anyway, they weren't. So now they've got to at least focus on them. God, how are they going to focus on all these issues? Okay, so we'll go to the, actually, I'm going to finish that there, because the next thing, I'm going to do this a separate video, which is chapter 4, release of personal information, because that's a very important section. And I'd like, you know, it might be too much following on from that. It's a separate issue. So I'm going to finish this video there about communications, and the next video will be personal information, dealing with which will be chapter 4, the release of personal information. That's the next video. So until then, remember to live and love wisely, carefully, and remember to look after you, because you are the most important person. Don't let anyone take your sparkle away. And until I see you again, may your God always, always go with you. Thank you so much.